Washington, D.C. Green Festival. This is our 11th year of Green Festivals. We do Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, Washington, D.C. We'd like to expand to about 10 other cities, so if there are any investors in the crowd that want to get involved in this event is put on by two nonprofit organizations, Global Exchange based in San Francisco, a human rights social justice organization, and Green America based here in Washington, D.C., which is the premier green economy organization. We are both located over by the main entrance. Global Exchange and Green America booths are over there. Please come get our information. We take people to other countries. Green America organizes the largest green economy network, thousands of green companies in the United States. The green economy is the next economy because the natural resource base is being depleted and the population keeps going up. And the connecting bridge between that is the green economy. It's going to be the next economy. So we're trying to jumpstart it and accelerate that transition. We are going from a world where money values rule over the life cycle to one where life values will rule over the money cycle, where social justice and environmental restoration will take precedence over profitability, although profitability is necessary. So we screened all of these exhibitors using the Green America screen for social justice and environment. These are the best companies around, right? Most of the companies, 99% of the companies in this country could not get into this event. We are the enemies of greenwashing, right? So we filter that out so you don't have to worry about, is this real? Is it really organic? You know, is it really fair trade? I want to remind you that after Ralph's talk, he's going to be signing books over in the bookstore, so please don't hold him here. Escort him over to the bookstore so he can sign books. And we have to give special thanks to over 1,000 volunteers, the people you see with the blue and orange shirts going around. Those are all volunteers, including our speakers. You know, speakers like Greg Pallas and Ralph Nader, they usually get thousands of dollars to speak. They speak at this event for free. Amy Goodman, all of these high-level speakers, they all volunteer their services to how we make this work financially. And I want to do a special shout-out to some of our special supporters, Ford Motor Company, Cliff Bar, Raw Juice, NAACP, Repax, Sustain You, Book Publishing, New York Times, National Children's Museum, the National Aquarium of Washington, Mom's Organic Market, Earth Balance, Democracy Now!, Sierra Club, Mother Jones, Natural Solutions, Washington City Paper, and Earth Island Journal. We are really privileged to have with us today a true icon of the movement in the United States. Ralph Nader, consumer advocate, author, lawyer, the public citizen. He started the organization Public Citizen. I'm a proud member of that organization for many years. 40 years at the forefront of the progressive movement. He's been cited by the Atlantic magazine as one of the 100 most influential figures in American history. He's launched 3 major presidential campaigns, founded more than 100 civic organizations, and written bestsellers including 17 Traditions, The Good Fight, his landmark book, Unsafe at Any Speed, which I was lucky to read as a teenager, which woke me up to some of the issues we face in terms of corporate accountability. And I've been reading his new book, The 17 Solutions. It's his best book yet. It's awesome. It's so clear and so powerful for the issues that we're facing in this country. Please join me in giving a very warm Green Festival welcome to Ralph Nader.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Is that all right? Good. All right. I want to see this be a real exercise in self-assertion and self-determination. So it's not going to be an ordinary excursus on all the injustices. You know what they are, and you wouldn't be here if you didn't. We live in a golden age of expose documentaries. Very little happens. A golden age of muckraking books on corporate crime and corporate power and government perfidy and wars of aggression, very little happens. We live in a period when we can communicate with everybody very cheaply over the internet and have friends, and community's never been weaker or more disintegrating. So we have to turn this around, and we do it partly by this process of self-realization, which is why you're here, because this is the representative of the green economy, the green sub-economy. The significance of this economy is not only that it respects posterity, it respects the environment, it respects our health and safety, it respects our need to be more ecologically efficient, it respects our pocketbook, but what it also does cumulatively is it weakens the power of giant corporations. Every time you go to a community bank or a co-op or a democratically run credit union to do your business, you're weakening the Bank of America and Citigroup and Wells Fargo. You're replacing their sales. You're displacing their sales. Every time you go to a community health clinic that emphasizes prevention, you're weakening the sales of the health insurance and the drug companies and the hospital chains. Every time you use local renewable energy, you are displacing the sales of ExxonMobil and Peabody Coal and the dreaded nuclear industry. Every time you develop your own transportation systems locally that can be more efficient, you're displacing the sales of the way our transportation system has been built to service the giant auto and highway lobbies. So think of that in that manner, because it's not only you get a better deal for your dollar, it's that your dollar is a message for the greatest movement to weaken giant corporate power that's in our hands, which is displacing their sales to us by taking our purchases to the green economy, to cooperatives, to farmer, to consumer marketplaces, to backyard gardens, where consumers become more and more producers. They become more and more producers. They link up with solar energy and energy efficiency in their homes. They become more producers if they can grow more of their own food. They become more producers if they can collaborate with their neighborhood and community to provide services that are now provided them by giant corporations. So it's good to take the experiences of you participating in the green economy, which is represented all over this convention hall, and elaborating it into a way of life, into a philosophy of life, into an economic policy that is in your hands. Now I keep saying in your hands because people are frustrated today. They think they're powerless. Nobody in power is listening to them. That the people are excluded, disrespected, underinsured, underpaid, and there's nothing can be done about it. I've never seen a period where people have given up on themselves and can give you 100 excuses as to why they don't show up in marches and rallies and city council meetings and courtrooms and neighborhood gatherings. Well, we shouldn't let them give us these excuses, because by giving these excuses our patience, these excuses are damaging the very people who give them. They're very self-predictable. So let's start with this. If we want to turn this country and help turn this world around, we have to do everything that we can do that nobody can stop us from doing. So nobody can stop us from showing up. How many of you have gotten on the phone? You want to get people to a neighborhood meeting. You want to get people to a referendum, and you got to beg them in their own interest to go and show up. How many people have had that experience? It's pretty frustrating, right? It's not like you have to persuade them of your point of view. They already share your point of view, but they don't show up. Half of democracy is showing up. Now, how many people are here from New England? The New England town meeting, if it exists in your town, is about the most pristine form of democracy ever. That's because you may have selectmen, as they're called in New England, the city council, but you can override them with a town meeting, and if the town meeting is not enough, you go to a local referendum. You can't get anything better than that. And these towns are small enough you can knock on every door. There is the campaign finance problem. And would you believe it? That even when it comes to voting on the town budget, I mean, wouldn't people in New York City and Washington, D.C. like to have a popular vote on the budget? Here they have their own vote on their own budget. Over half the people don't even show up. Now, we can't make excuses for ourselves any longer. So we start with a list of all the things that we can do to strengthen our democracy, political democracy, economic democracy, social democracy, that no one can stop us from doing. That's a very important mindset, because the big secret of democracy, other than it works, is that it's a lot easier than we think. It's a lot easier than we think to take this country into new directions and to make these giant corporations our servants, not our masters. Corporations are not people. They are artificial entities. They were created by the state government, and they were created to be our servants, not our masters. But they work overtime for 150 years to make it appear that they are ordained to be our masters. When someone asks you, who creates corporations? Investors do not create corporations. Corporations are created by the state government. They give them a charter to exist with all kinds of supposed responsibilities. Investors finance the corporation. They do not create it. And if the state, meaning us, gives them a charter to exist, we can condition that charter. Just like if you have a license, a driver's license, there's certain conditions to that. We can condition that charter. We can pull the charter. Over 100 years ago, the Attorney General of Ohio pulled the charter for Standard Oil of Ohio. He says, you're misbehaving, and in Ohio, you can't exist anymore. There were attorney generals in the late 1900s who actually revoked the charter. There are some groups now who are picking up on that, and they're demanding that the charter be a condition for good behavior, not for polluting the waterways, Exxon Valdez, not for selling dangerous medicines like Pfizer has. There's got to be an accountability mechanism short of regulation, prosecution. Go right to the core of the charter that is their license to exist. That doesn't mean all the workers have to be unemployed. When you pull the charter and throw it in a charter trusteeship, you replace the bosses, you replace the board of directors with trustees to steer the corporation in a law-complying and decent pattern of behavior. Now, here's what I mean when I say in our hands. First, let's confess to a few things. We are working overtime to be powerless. We are the most creative people in the history of the world to show ourselves how powerless we are when we don't have to be. That's the assumption number one. Assumption number two is we have a modern economy that should have abolished poverty long ago. There is no rational economic reason, given the productivity of workers today, for any poverty. Indeed, until 2009, 2010, Western European countries abolished poverty as we know it in our country. That's because they have a higher minimum wage, they have health insurance, they have daycare, they have tuition-free education at the college level, they have cheap, decent public transit, they have good pensions, they have weeks of paid vacation, they have a huge safety net. When they started adopting the multinational U.S. corporate model and the banks, and they began to financialize their economies and more debt, that's when they got into trouble. It was Goldman Sachs who got them in trouble, symbolically and actually, representing the financial industry. So it isn't like no society has abolished poverty. Societies know how to abolish poverty. John Maynard Keynes, the economist, in the midst of the Depression in the 1930s, wrote a letter to his grandchildren. And he said, we are on the verge with these modern economies of solving the economic problem, as he put it, which means abolishing poverty. What do we have in this country? Staggering wealth in the hands of the 1%. And half the country's in poverty. Half the country is in poverty. The Department of Labor defines poverty ridiculously low. It says a family of four that makes $24,000 a year before deductions is not poor. $24,000. If you say $40,000 for a family of four, anything below $40,000 for a family of four, you extrapolate, you have half the United States of America in poverty. We are an advanced third world country. We're advanced in science, in military weapons, in computers, but we are sinking in terms of the necessities of life. Food, shelter, energy, health insurance, health care. No one dies in Luxembourg, France, Germany, Italy, Sweden, Canada. No one dies because they don't have health insurance. In our country, according to a Harvard Medical School research study, peer-reviewed, Journal of the American Public Health Journal, 800 Americans a week die because they cannot afford health insurance to get diagnosed and treated in time. Quite apart from those who stay sick or injured because they don't have health insurance, 800 a week, let that sink in. 800 a week, that's over 100 a day. Our politicians and the heads of Aetna and Cigna and Pfizer and Merck are insisting on the present gouging, wasteful, corrupt, redundant health insurance system whose main business is denial in order to increase profits. They are condoning 800 dead Americans a week. Where's the patriotism there? Where are the bugle calls? Where are the presidential statements? Where's the concern in Congress about this? The lack of health insurance is not just economic. It's not just preventing anguish. It's not just preventing pain. It's preventing death and injury and sickness. We are an advanced third world country. We got to face it. If we don't face it, we're living a myth. We're living the Horatio Alger dream. I have a dream, people say. I have a dream. Everybody can have a chance to be Bill Gates. This is a controlling mythology, and more people aren't buying it. So, when I say it's in our hands, here's how we start. First, we shame ourselves. How many people like to shame themselves into action? Never mind guilt. The hell with guilt. How many want to shame themselves into action in their neighborhood? That's what you have to do. Shame is a powerful motivator. All right, let's go with this one. If you had a neighbor that spent 22% of your income every year, that could send your children off to criminal wars of aggression, that could allow corporations to poison your environment, or close down your factories and ship them to communist and fascist regimes overseas with taxpayer benefits, would you pay any attention to your neighbor? Okay, that's your member of Congress. Okay, so let's be candid here. How many people here, and this is an active audience, how many people here spend more time during the year watching their member of Congress compared to watching themselves in the mirror? Can I see the hands? See? We spend more time watching ourselves in the mirror than watching 535 men and women who put their shoes on every day like we do, and who control so much of our lives on behalf, largely, of giant corporations that were chartered by the U.S., that grew to profit on the backs of American workers. When they got in trouble, they went to Washington and were bailed out by American taxpayers. And when they got in trouble overseas in their aggressive ways, they were saved by the U.S. Marines. And what do? They come back here and they own the Congress, and they own the White House, and they owning 5 out of 9 Supreme Court justices, and they have no sense of gratitude for what the people of this country have done for them as taxpayers, consumers. And their only message is not thank you, it's, hey folks, we're out of here with your jobs and industries, to these repressive regimes abroad who know how to put their workers in their place. Okay, 535 members of Congress. How do you get your members of Congress' attention? It's so bad now that when you call your senator representative, if you're not a big contributor, you're at the end of the line. You're lucky if you get a college intern. In fact, they have the computer has the printout. If they hadn't heard of you, they can find out while they're talking to you whether you're a giver to their campaign. Will Rogers, the Oklahoma sage, once said, Congress is the best money can buy. That was in the 1930s. It's become a little more complex. Congress is now not only the best money can buy, but the best money can rent. Because Congress sits on a pile of goodies, on a pile of poor criminal corporate enforcement budgets that these corporations want to spend a lot of time up on Capitol Hill to deal with. Tens of billions of dollars go one way or the other, depending on how powerful these corporations are. So how do you get a member of Congress attention? Are there any graphic artists here? Anybody who's good in art? Huh? 1, 2. Okay, here's what we did. How many of you heard of the corporation masquerading as a human being who is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, John Boehner? Okay? Here's how you get John Boehner's attention. Can you see that? Okay, this is John Boehner. This is the jacket we've prepared for him. And the logos are the corporations who own them. Sallie Mae, ExxonMobil, Walmart. So this is the jacket. Now suppose people in all the congressional districts, they said, you know, there's one thing we can do. We can pitch in and hire a tailor, and for a couple $1,000s, because it takes a lot of work on the logos, we can prepare a jacket for the member of Congress and have certain venues where we present him or her with this poster and ask whether they would like a jacket. Now, you know the story of pictures worth 1,000 words? This tells the story, folks. This is what it's all about. You push a few buttons, you get the list of contributors to each member of Congress, very easy, from very reputable citizen groups, and then you go to work. So pretty soon at the water cooler, hey, did you see the Boehner jacket? Did you see the Reed jacket? Did you see the Kerry jacket? Did you see the Cantor jacket? Pitch in to have the tailor create the jacket. You'll see that this goes right to the heart of the personalization of members of Congress. They will not be able to hide behind slogans, flax, PR, 30-second TV ads. Very simple. Nobody can stop you from doing this. It also develops a little community behind it. You meet different people who get together to prepare the jacket. In the meantime, people get educated. Why is Sally Mae so big on his left sleeve? Because Sally Mae owned him for years, and he was the chief obstructor to the reform of the student loan racket in America, affecting millions of students long after they've graduated. And it's the bigger one because they've been with him and given him more money than some of the smaller ones. Okay. Let's go to the second thing here. A lot of you have given interviews probably locally in the various things you've done. The media will listen when you describe some of the injustices to workers, children, women, minorities, environment, schools, whatever. Once you start moving into the solution area, their eyes glaze over. As a culture, we've become solution averse. If we cannot imagine, we cannot envision real possibilities for our country. We have got to move the criticism into the envelope of the solution at the same time. So if we show that the wealthy and the corporate get away with paying less taxes, sometimes no taxes. Verizon hasn't paid federal income tax in years. General Electric hasn't paid federal income tax in years. They get a check every year from the Treasury. They've rigged it so they not only don't pay federal income tax, General Electric, they get hundreds of millions of dollars back. So, okay, so we're giving interviews, or we're writing, or we're talking with our friends, and guess what? After a while, people get discouraged. They hear the same criticism, the same documentation. Pretty soon it becomes humdrum. Pretty soon they tune out. So the criticism has to be married to the solution. Okay, let's take the tax one. A vast majority of the American people will agree on this one. Let us first tax what we burn before we tax what we earn.